This is the Hypothetically Sound podcast,
hosted by Alec, Randy, and Xavier,
where we take a hypothetical look at the world around us,
exploring the what-ifs, maybes, and how comes.
Join in on the unfiltered, raw, and real conversations
as we explore the world around us. And the whole situation was insane to me because I was there for the beginning of it. Obviously, it got worse after my internship. But I remember, like, I'm 18, I'm homeless, I'm going through my own stuff, and then being brought into an office with you not there, and them telling me and Hannah what's going on, and then, like, telling us to, like, watch out for you and, like, tell us if there's stuff going on. And I'm just like, that's not, like, me and Hannah were offended. We're like, no, that's not how this works. Yeah. That's not what we're about. Like, if something's wrong, obviously she needs help. Like, that's what we're here for. Let's help. And, like, knowing now everything that happened to you after, like, it's insane. I wish I did more. Like, and it's just hindsight. Like, I wish I did more, but, like, I didn't know what to do.
We were kids. Like,
at the same time, I'm homeless. This is, yeah. Like, I was fighting for my life. Like, I'm sleeping in the playhouse without permission and, like, hiding from her like, I remember getting a call from Andy at like 6:30 on like a Thursday or Friday because she was coming in with board members at 7. I'm like, I woke up at like 6:59 and had to run out the back door, and then she saw my van there, and it, like came storming in on a Saturday morning. Before, it was like, why was your van here on a Thursday morning? I'm like, I was at a friend's house. You do know I'm homeless, so, like, if I don't need my van, I'm leaving it here in a parking lot that's not going to get towed. She's like, well, I just want to make sure you're not in here. Blah, blah. I'm like, thanks for caring. It's just, and how you were treated is still so absurd to me. The fact that they refuse to do anything, and then telling you not to telling you how to do your art.
Well,
I think it was like is insane.
It was a weird place to be into because up until that point it had been fine, and, like, I had been so open about it. Like, I talked to them about it when they hired me. Like, this wasn't, a safe place. I want to work for here because I was going through this stuff. Like, it's not like any of it was a surprise. And, like, honestly, like, at that point, I wasn't even like, oh, it's your fault you didn't give me health insurance. I was trying to figure it out. And, like, I was young enough and it was my first job. I didn't know enough to, like, go in and have to demand, like, hey, you need to get me health insurance. I have medical needs. Like, where are you guys at with this?
Mm-hmm.
Well, and then, of course, like, I'll just finish this story. The economy had tanked in 2007, and then by 2008, we were starting to feel the nonprofits started feeling it, right? So they basically cut my hours to less than half, and we're like, well, you can stay on if you want, but then I wouldn't have been eligible for health insurance, or not health insurance, but unemployment. And I'm sorry, they didn't pay me very much. So, like, well, and before that, actually, because things were getting hard to afford, I had asked them, I had been like, hey, I've been job hunting for a part-time gig. I found this really good, like, administrative position who understands that I might be in and out because of touring. He's willing to work around our schedule. Like, I just want to let you know, like, I'm kind of excited because then I can have better income, like, I'm going broke here, guys. You're not paying me very much. And even though Andy was doing, like, tutoring stuff and he was doing stuff, they were like, you can't do that. You need to be available whenever we need you. And I was like, okay. And again, 21, I didn't want to be fired. Like, that was June's company. I love June. I would have done, like, anything. Like, honestly, if they hadn't have fired me, I think I would have, like, they would have had to pull me away by my teeth because, like, I love June so much, and I love what that company was and was trying to be. So June Erdman, by the way, is the person who founded it, founded SOS. So that had happened. They had been like, yeah, you can't get a second job. And I was like, well, what kind of job? Like, I can't survive on this. Like, can you give me a raise? Like, what are, and they're like, well, you could do some voiceover work. I was like, where do I even start with that? Like, where do I audition for that? Like, can someone guide me in that direction if that's your solution? And like, it was just bizarre, right? It was very bizarre. So then, like I was saying, the recession hit, my position was cut, and I was like, I need the unemployment. I can't take a part-time position because I need to be able to, afford my apartment and stuff. So, I was on my way out, and I was thinking about like I couldn't take an additional job. They didn't give me the health insurance they promised. And I was like, I feel like honestly, they have not treated me very well. And I want to at least have a chance to like tell them from my perspective what has happened. And like, hopefully then they can make it better for the people coming through. Like, and it wasn't from my perspective at that point, like I'm trying to take the company down. Like, I love that company. Like, I didn't want to do anything to hurt it. But what they did was not okay. And if they have other people coming through where they promise them health insurance, like, let me be a warning story, but like, hey, I'm going to go on the record and be like, you guys need to do this better. So little old, like 21-year-old me, was I 21 then? I don't know, like early 20s, right? They are like, fine, meet me at this board meeting. I was like, and then you can talk and like say your piece. It's like, okay. So I'm going into this room with like a lot of established adults. Like it was kind of intimidating. And honestly, like, I never use this for anything. Like, and I don't know if I was not allowed to do this. Like, I don't know where it is now. So, I don't think it exists anymore. But because I was going by myself without a witness, without anything, like I actually took a tape recorder in there to make sure that I said things the way that I thought I was saying them. Does that make sense? I wanted to check my communication more than I cared about them. I wanted to make sure like I didn't say anything wrong or offensive or whatever. And so like I kind of like I had done some research about like the American Disabilities Act and how like reasonable accommodations, like especially with like the depression and like working in the building together, like would have been a reasonable accommodation. And like just like again, from my perspective, whether this was ignorant or not, I was just trying to make the company better and like let them know like, hey, this wasn't okay.
Yeah.
So I get there and it's the HR department. No, I don't even think HR was there. I think it was just the lawyer and like the head of the company. So like I'm like, okay. And so I talked to them. I think I teared up a couple times. Like I'm like, this company meant so much and it was really hurtful when, like you said, I wasn't safe to work with youth and teens. Like that's kind of offensive. like you didn't give me insurance and like yada yada, right? And afterwards, they just kind of looked at me and were like, okay, at this point, we legally can't respond to you or say anything more at this point. And I said, oh, okay. Okay. So I left and I was like feeling like, okay, well, at least I've said my piece, yada, yada. And then I don't even remember how many days or if it was like a week later, they sent me a letter that said I was no longer allowed on the premises, that I couldn't come talk to the kids that I've worked with for now 8 years, that I just was not allowed to be there anymore. And when I tell you, like, I cried so hard. My mom said it was kind of like if you were pointing out that, hey, you have a sliver in your arm, and then the person comes back and whaps you over the head with like a giant mallet, like a la like Woody Woodpecker, like, and just beats the crap out of you. Like their response was so heavy handed and so like I still sometimes can't believe it, and I still get like for a place that was so formative, like that meant so much to me that I loved so much. I mean, like Randy, you know this, but like I used June as my first daughter's middle name because June Erdman changed the trajectory of my life when I joined SOS. To go from that to, oh, you're just not allowed back in after what they had done to me, like, and it's like we said at the beginning, I thought that this job was tailor-made for me. Like, I thought that this was it. This was my dream job. This was what I wanted to spend the rest of my life doing. And it is, I mean, it felt very much like they're just afraid of legal ramifications. And so, similarly to how they had been handling, like we were talking about, the people who needed help after shows, the actors in the company that needed people to listen to them, instead of being a human and maybe, I don't know, apologizing to me for like not doing what they said they were going to do. Everything was through the vein of like, this is our legal stance and that's it. And so I mean, there were a lot of things not working towards the end with SOS. I think
Yeah.
honestly, I don't know if SOS ever did make money. June had money from Jack, her husband, when he passed. And when he was alive, he helped support the company as well. And so when they left, I don't know if SOS was actually making money. And then it was just through grants. And the people writing grants at the end, I don't think were very good at writing grants. There were like grammatical and punctuation errors all over it. And then they were sending it to educated people. And I was like, "Eee."
And it's not hard.
When at one point I looked at this as like a young 20-something. I was like, do you want to teach me how to do grants? I've never done it before, but maybe I could help. Like they started down that path and then it just never came out. But
Like, and that was a crazy thing. Like, I thought grant writing was so hard because they had me do one, and like it wasn't hard, but like I thought, like because they made it such a big deal, I was like, it's not perfect. And then I get to UWL, and literally the first thing to do is like, yes, write 50 grants because they're not hard. They're really simple to do.
yeah,
If you do them right, people will give you money. And like to see that and then like, how did they fail so hard? We have the track record to win these grants. How did they fail so hard? And talking about June, like I know for a fact that there was a point in time where when SOS wasn't making money before she died, it came out of her pocket if we needed something. There was a 3-month period where she paid the actors out of her pocket. And then when she died and certain people took over the company, I feel that they were afraid of June's history and legacy.
Yeah, for people who don't know this, I don't know if you talked about it in the other episodes, but when June died, they refused to put anything on the website honoring her. And I had a big fight with management over that. Like I was like, I could do it. I can edit websites. Like you don't have to do anything. I will do it. Like let me please. She founded the company. Yep. Answer was no. At one point, the alumni were like, "Hey, are you going to do a plaque like we have up for Jack, her husband, who was helpful, obviously a big part in the starting of it too?" And they're like, the management was like, "Yeah, if they pay for it, like if the alumni pay for it, I was like, it is weird to be in a place where it has always been your safe place to no longer feel safe. And
Yeah.
interestingly, when I was in Arizona, I also had another job at a nonprofit theater. And I was also there when the founder stepped down. And watching a healthy company do a transition of power and how they handled it versus watching what SOS did and seeing how that went down was like night and day and very like educational for me.
Mhm.
And it's just unfortunate. Like I think SOS in today's times, everything has shifted so much with social media. Um, and I mean, like, think about 1990 when this started. Like, SOS was a big deal in the 90s because they went into schools and had a sketch on AIDS. They were like, hey, we're going to talk about this.
Mhm.
And that made them like edgy, I guess. Like, I don't know how to word it without sounding really nerdy, but like, like, I do think that
Yeah.
put them kind of ahead of the times and made it so that the teens listened, right? Because they weren't afraid to say things that might rub people the wrong way, mainly the adults, right? Like, they weren't afraid to talk about things
Mhm.
that at that point were not often talked about. By the time I was at the end of the directing at SOS, they would, if we did a show at the start of the day and had a complaint from a teacher or the principal, oh, a parent saw your suicide sketch or this cyberbullying sketch, you cannot say the word suicide at the school. We were, as directors, under the explicit instruction to take that out of the show. That, oh, that's just what they want. We want to. When I worked with Wendy and Tanner, when Wendy was in a show and a teacher did that to her, you know what she would say? She's like, "Well, you're not changing my show. We told you what was going to be in here. We'll walk." Like, and she would have like packed up the
Yeah.
whole show and just taken us home because she was like, "Look, a watered down version of this is not what these teens need, and that's not what we're doing here." And like, I have the approval from this person who hired me. If you have an issue, go talk to this person. And usually they all had like an understanding of like, no, this is the bigger reason for having this show. And yes, it touches on things that are hard, but we're going to do that
Mhm.
here. And so when they started adjusting for the most sensitive audience members, instead of like getting those important messages out, I think we lost a lot of
Mhm.
definitely all the edge that we might have had left. But also, I think it stopped speaking to kids in the same way, right? Like, um,
Yeah.
so I think it's an interesting proposition if you are trying to do a new kind of SOS model, because um, I think there's still a place for it. When I think about SOS, I think about
Oh yeah.
I loved the idea of giving teens a voice. I loved giving people who felt that they didn't have any control in their world or power in their words to be able to give them a stage and a platform to say, this is what I believe and this is how I want to help. Like, there's something really cool about that. And so I think there's always going to be a way to do that. It's just like, what does that look like in 2022? Is it more like TikTok stuff? Is it like a viral TikTok that's more like spoken word? Is it like, no, we're gonna go into schools, but we're gonna like amp it up and like I don't know. I don't know like well, and the other thing that I think was a big shift over the years in SOS were summer rehearsals, the ability for kids to commit to a full summer of rehearsal. And again, that idea of mastery scheduling started really playing a big piece where like kids that were interested were like,
Mhm.
well, I'm doing language camp and lacrosse camp and I don't know, kung fu camp. I can't commit to all summer on just one thing because, for college applications or for the commitments that I already have. And so it began, even when I was still there, being harder to get to attract people that I think people are going to listen to too. Because I think
Mhm.
like for better or for worse, like part of what was interesting about like the year that I joined is that I think I mentioned before, like they all looked like the popular kids. Like they were getting asked to prom all the time. I did not get asked to prom, but I was like next to the people getting asked to prom. like, um, and I think that also lent to, for better or for worse, because it's high school, lent to the credibility as well.
Yeah. No, definitely. The as time went on, the
Mhm.
actors started looking younger, uh, and weren't, for lack of a stereotypical view, weren't the
Mhm.
quintessential actor looks that
Yeah.
was common in SOS. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm not a looker, but at
Yeah.
17, I was 5'11",
Yeah.
300 pounds. I looked like an adult. I looked like, and then there was kids who, like my brother was about to be in the senior shows, and he was 5 foot nothing.
We were hurting for like getting people in the door like towards the end, like both scheduling, but I also think like the cool kids, and like if you start to
Mm,
get like for instance, if your brother joined the group and like he was looking younger and like my guess is his friends also look on par with that, younger and stuff, right? And if
mhm.
we are not
Yeah,
getting enough people in the door to audition where we have a lot of choices to fill the roster, then yeah, your cast starts to look younger too. And that's just kind of the nature of what happens. Um, but
yeah.
that's all like casting stuff. I did, I don't know if you have done this because we just been chatting. You had asked me like some things how SOS like impacted me as an adult. I made a
Yeah,
list.
yep, yeah. I was actually about to move us away from all this uh, sad and dramatic stuff and move us into some favorite memories and impacts and stuff. So yeah, let's move to, how did
Ooh.
SOS impact you?
One, I still want to be back there. Um, so I think you were there for June's funeral. So after June passed away, we got permission to have the alumni come over to the Playhouse and see the Playhouse. And these people that had not done that show in, 10 years still knew some of the lines. And we got like a cast of alumni to get up and to do sketches from the show. And like that's one of my all-time favorite memories actually.
Did speaking of that, that was the only time that
What?
me and you
I
ever
guess
acted together.
right, because you came '06
I
and
was
I was
JD, you were
already
Michelle.
I was already in college.
It was the only time that
Oh,
we ever acted together. I had Brandon behind me, I had Derek behind me, and I had why in Gazillion,
John.
not Simon. Why can I not think of his name? John,
Yeah.
were my friends, and that so fun. Like, it was so hard not because
Yeah.
like we still wanted to perform and act, but they're just so goofy and
Yeah.
funny.
Right? That was
Oh,
such
it's good memory.
like I
Good
feel like June was in heaven just eating that up. Like, well, and you think about how
Oh yeah.
many kids went through that program and how many like and that's not even to talk about the audiences that we were in front of. That's just like the sheer number of like
Mhm,
hundreds of teens that went through that program. Yeah, so that was one of my favorite
mhm.
memories. Um just like being on the bus with people. I still remember we were doing the drug sketch, and I think my line was supposed to be like, so I dragged him to my car and I drove him to the hospital myself. And I was like on stage, and for whatever reason, my brain farted out, and I thought I was going to say, like, I dragged him to my car and I drove him to the ambulance myself. Like, I tried really hard to stay in it, but I could hear so my friend Derek was behind me on the blocks, and Derek, for people who don't know him, had this gigantic afro, and it was the most beautiful thing. But like, he was tall and skinny, like almost looked like a giant microphone. And every time he laughed, this afro would move at a separate like space as his head. Like, his head would move as he was laughing, and then the afro would go after. And I heard him like, she said ambulance. Like, because he was trying not to laugh. So I'm on stage trying to be very serious about my boyfriend who just OD'd. And I had this really bad mess up. And he is still, like, to this day, sometimes like teases me about that. So for better or for worse, the mess up memories, like I held it together barely, but I did it. Yeah, and other
That reminds me, sorry,
yeah,
we had to change that line for me because I started laughing on stage one show. We changed it to, and I helped him to the car and drove him to the hospital.
Oh no!
Because none of the girls were dragging me to the car, and I think it was like Shay or someone said they dragged me to the car, and I'm just looking at her, and I like my eyes open wide, and I'm trying not to laugh on stage when she said that because I'm like, I knew people in the audience were like, okay, you dragged him, okay, and I'm just like,
I love too,
just
like
serious again.
the audiences that were very interactive. When we had the pregnancy sketch, and there was always a pause before you would have to say, like, JD, I'm pregnant. Like, JD, we have to talk. And then it's like, JD, I'm pregnant. And the audience would either be like, call it ahead of time. So like in that like pregnant pause, they'd be like, oh, she's knocked up. Or like, right. And so like, you're again trying to hold it together, be professional. Or like you'd say, JD, I'm pregnant. And everyone in the audience would go, ooh, ooh. Like those kind of things always freaking cracked me up.
So I pushed the envelope a lot on stage because I found it was fun. That happened. Someone guessed it, and in my mind, I'm like, I've already broken the wall, so I can continue to break the wall. And someone goes, "She pregnant," and she says it, and she's like, "I called it." I was like, "You right," and went right back to the scene. And Andy was like, and the crowd laughed. And Andy after the show was like, "Randy, I love you. It was funny.
You get pulled out
Don't
of the
ever
moment.
do it again." I'm like,
yeah.
Like I went back into, I was fine, but I'm pretty sure.
Well, and I'm sure that that technically would have been in character, wouldn't it? Because you were the way you broke the third wall or fourth wall. Yeah. I learned
Fourth
theater.
wall,
Yeah, but no, that actually would have been in character too. But yeah, I see why like maybe that moment wouldn't have been the best. Or
like it wasn't exact, like whatever he said, like I was able to transition from like commenting on what he said to her. It was definitely something like not sexist, but something like like misogynist. And so I was able to like use that. But he's just like,
don't do it again.
Great. This is great. Just maybe don't do it again. And I didn't. I was like, I pressed buttons like I did in Suicide, I did in my monologues. And if I got called out on it, I never did it again. If I didn't, I knew I could.
Let's see, other favorite memories. This is less of a memory and more of something that I'm really proud of, like especially given like all that we've just talked about. So that depression sketch that I was not allowed to use my personal experience for, I had everybody sit down and write, like, just do like stream of consciousness writing about like their experiences with depression and what they think of it and yada
Hmm.
yada. And then I went and I wrote it like what I thought was like a really strong sketch, and I would put pieces of everybody's like experience and lines that they had written into this sketch. And for all of the crap that they gave me, I found that even when they had moved locations and were still like doing it, they were doing that sketch that they gave me such a hard time about for years, years after I left. They never rewrote it. I was like,
Hmm.
well, yeah, yeah.
Makes you feel better. Carly specifically brought up that scene, and she recalled you, and I remember this while rehearsing
Yeah.
it, stacking blocks in front of her to make her be louder and more emotional to get to like simulate that sometimes you can be
Well,
yelling
that's
to
that's the whole
a brick
concept, right? So
wall.
that wasn't just an exercise, that was part of the sketch. Yeah, yeah, that was the
Oh,
whole
did it end
idea.
up being
So
part of the sketch?
basically,
Okay.
I wrote it kind of like you would like a debate speech, where you're like, here's the history of
Hmm.
depression and facts, and like this is why I don't go and ask people for help. I'm struggling, but it's like no one's listening to me because they don't want to hear it. Like it's uncomfortable. Like, so what do? I'm asking for help, but there's no one to help me. And like as the character is like saying this, the blocks are getting stacked in front of her and she's getting more and more desperate because she needs the
Hmm.
help, and yet no one is listening to her, and it's all just like built up against her. And like sorry, I'm trying to figure out where my sunlight is. Okay. um yeah, so I was very proud that worked so well, and that I was able to use what I
Hmm.
feel like is a skill set of mine to um facilitate writing, like, because I always think a group is better than one person. So, like, usually I don't like
Yeah.
just going and writing by myself. That's just not like, especially in an SOS environment, that's all like group work, right? And like, if I'm
Hmm.
surrounded by creative, smart people, why am I the only one writing it? Like I'm creative and smart, but I'm only one
Yeah.
person. Like it's gonna be better if you have more people. So anyway, proud of that.
Which is what I love, like writing cyberbully. Like, it was cool writing it, but like, yeah, I'm in a room full of people
Mm.
who are just as smart, just as creative, just as talented.
Yeah.
Why would I not pick their
Well,
brains to write a
well,
killer
and
sketch?
even at
And
21
it
when
did.
y'all were like, 16, 17 or whatever, I wasn't that much older than you, but like in
Mhm.
like high school, that's like a lifetime. Like people's experience from
Mhm.
even just a couple years, younger than me are going to be so different than mine were. And they're going to have their own thoughts and feelings about the
Mhm.
world around them and like all of these subjects. So it's really less about what I want to say and more about like how can I let their voices be heard. So anyway, I was like,
Mhm.
um,
Yeah.
did you say favorite memories and the impact?
Yeah, we could keep on favorite memories for now, and then whenever you're
Okay,
done with
I'll
your
do
list,
one
we can move
more.
on to the impacts.
Like, cause we could go for a long time on this.
Okay.
Uh, Probably the only, and this is so like unrelated to SOS in any way other than like it's with SOS people at the Playhouse. But we used to do movie nights. I don't know if you remember that. And the Playhouse was actually a renovated
Mhm.
old church. And like we performed, and the chairs were a bunch of pews, like upstairs. It was from, I think, the 1800s. Like it was a really old space. And so, like, I feel like there was probably more than a handful of funerals that have taken place in this building. It was a church, that makes sense. So we, being very smart, decided we were going to watch a scary movie at the Playhouse at night. And it was an internship year, and so I was in charge of like locking up, making sure everyone got home at at 10 p.m. or whenever we had to get out of there. But because of when we started the movie, we didn't get to finish it, and we were watching 13 Ghosts. And like
Mhm.
I don't get scared very easily in horror movies, like or just in general. Like that's not really my MO. But to be like at the part of that movie where all of the crazy killing ghosts are let loose in a house, and then I have to turn off the movie that I've never seen the ending to and go up in a creepy, creepy old church and lock the doors. Like I was so freaked out. And like I
Yeah, no. The little
come
ghost
on.
girl that lived in the playhouse.
I don't know if I
She made
believe
life
that. I still don't
interesting.
know, but I was like spooked and I was like, y'all get out of here. Like, we just need to lock up and leave. Okay. Okay. So do you have any more memories you want to share?
I'm trying to think if there's any ones with
Yeah.
you. Like, obviously, I have memories with you. I'm trying to think of. Honestly, like working with you, and like just learning from you, really impacted how I moved ahead in life. As impactful as Andy was for me, that year with you as an associate director, and then coming back as like a full-time director when I was an intern, really shaped how I approach things professionally and how I viewed theater in general or working with people in general. And so definitely you impacted me in how I wanted to approach life after. Because while people in SOS all had their own things, I felt like you had a very similar like mental state as me with just life in general and how it had been. And you were able to like see things in me that other people weren't able to see. So you were able to have conversations with me when you knew something's wrong and other people couldn't see. And so like you definitely were a huge reason I was able to get through my internship year at all. Like, did we butt heads? Of course, because we are very similar people. And so like we would get on each other's nerves, but we were good friends. And it was very important for me.
Thank
And I
you.
just want to make sure I
Thank
let you know that.
you. I feel like I don't always, I think either directing or like teaching and now I guess motherhood, like those positions, you don't always hear feedback. Like as an actor, you get feedback all the time.
Mhm.
But like when you're in that other role, it's not usually done where people are like, you did a really good job directing that, unless it's like Oscar level. Hey,
Mhm.
you know, so that really means a lot to me. Thank you so
Mhm.
much.
Yeah, not a problem. It is the truth.
Well,
Everyone
I
speaks
agree
the
with you. I
truth.
think like we have very similar hearts for a lot of things, and I think the things that made me a
Mhm.
good match for SOS also are similarly traits that you have that made you a really good fit as well. So,
Mhm. I mean, you could just look at our friends that interact. Like all of a sudden, I go to college and I look on Facebook and you're
oh,
hanging with like people I hung out with when I was like, oh, that's so cool.
yeah,
And so I was like, yeah, it makes sense.
yeah.
Like, why am I
Well, no,
surprised? It makes sense. Like, I'm glad that
yeah.
you and Eric became really good friends. Like, Eric was a huge when I was homeless. He did a lot
Eric's good
for me.
people.
Uh, and so I'm glad that
Mhm.
he is a very,
Yeah.
very good
Well, and
guy.
I'm of the belief that when you find good people, you hold on to them. I think like
Hmm.
I think in this life when you find good people, those are the ones you want to keep around.
Yeah,
So,
definitely. Uh, so let's move on to our last subject, and that's looking back
oh
now.
wait,
We've been
wait,
out of it
wait.
for a while. We've
I
talked about
think I know where
everything.
you're
Oh,
going, but
sorry.
we didn't do
Yeah.
the impact one yet. Oh,
Mhm.
okay.
That's what it was. It
Oh
was leading up to
no,
it. I like
I rubbed
I like to make things
I rubbed
dramatic.
your lead in. I'm sorry. I will be
uh,
quiet because when you
okay.
texted me like
No,
the
it
list of
is totally
questions,
good.
there was one more after that. So I was like, "Oh,
Hmm.
we're doing that one." Huh?
Yeah. Well, I
we
feel
kind of
like the last
covered.
one
Yeah,
kind of
sorry.
was most of our conversation.
Yeah.
No, that's like I said, perfectly
I
fine. Uh, but just looking back, do you feel SOS
Oh,
impacted
yeah.
your life as an adult?
I mean, to be honest, like, I think not only did I feel like I really found who I was in that experience, but the amount of life
Mhm.
skills that I think I learned through that experience, like I know we already kind of likened it to like being in the military where you're doing this really unique situation with a team of people that then become your people. Like, so not only has it affected my life in like lasting friendships, and honestly, I think that's one of the most important things, but a lot of things that I learned at SOS, which are also like theater stuff, but like SOS specifically was the one that taught it to me, are things like time management. I had to learn how to do my schoolwork in a way where it allowed me to tour and still manage to know all my lines, to do all my tests, to do well in school so I could stay in SOS. Like, I had that experience then going into college and then moving on with the rest of my life. I think I still use some of that stuff. Um, the listening skills that we had to learn at SOS, not only on stage, but I think outside of that too, like you were talking about, like the empathetic, is that the right word? Empathetic listening? I'm sorry. It's been almost
Mhm.
2 hours, so no.
Uh,
Um, but like to be able to listen to someone and let them know that you hear them and that you care about them, like we learn that for our conversations afterwards and then our peer conversations, just being a part of the group, and then having to do the show with a constantly different cast with a new scene partner who is going to do the exact same words in a completely different way. So if you just did your shtick and weren't in the moment, it wouldn't make sense. Like, that's so cool. Like I love the nuance of that.
mhm.
Um, things like yes and like from improv, that for me is like a life philosophy. Like what can I say yes to that is a experience that I'm going to remember forever and then add to it. Like and when I'm hanging out with like my kids and they want to like tell crazy stories, I go, yeah, and that happened. And then what? Like, so I use that obviously as a parent, but like I said, kind of a life philosophy of like, if it's, unless it's like a safety thing, obviously, like, what in life can I say yes to
Mhm.
that's going to bring me to the next really cool experience? Um, being a good team
Yeah.
member, like, obviously, we had like 40 some teens in the company at all times, and that was before we got the juniors in there. So, how do I become a good teammate? And I learned that even more specifically, I think, when I did the internship. And like I was saying, how me and Luke could like look at each other and know if the other person was having a hard time and we needed to step up in a new way. Like having that kind of partnership and that kind of work environment, I think shaped my expectations for better, for worse, for other work partnerships. Hard to live up to that Luke Spivey, but this idea that I have a voice and I can use it in society or just to make the world a better place. Like, uh, obviously, I am doing some like online presence stuff, but like the stuff I want to put out into the world, I want to try to keep as positive and uplifting as I can. And I think just valuing not only my own voice, but also like kids' voices, like my own kids, like it's important what their needs are and what they're communicating. And then how can I, again, be a good listener for other people's voices. Um, Sorry, I made a list for myself. You could probably tell. Okay, I got two more. The power of stories. I think I saw that again and again with SOS shows that like we need to be telling stories that aren't being told. And we need to be talking about the stuff that is too easy to put under the table and try not to look at. I think when we can do that and allow a safe place for that is when it's just a better place for everybody overall. And the diversity of voices is what's super important. Like, I loved that piece of SOS, not only because we got some diversity in the cast itself, but then also when we were traveling, we were seeing all levels of economics, all levels of like race, like everything. Well, Midwest, no, but but like being able to see other people living lives in new places at that age for me was very formative and changes, I think, my empathy level as an adult in all scenarios that I'm in. Um, and then the last thing is like, and I've been thinking about this piece a lot from like just COVID and like going through the pandemic. So, for some frame of reference, I was pregnant when the pandemic started, and I have a kid that has more medical needs. So, when it felt like a safety thing, like all of a sudden, the last couple years, I've had this really big theme of like, how do I give my kids and myself a safe place? And when I think about SOS, that's what I think June really gave to me is like a safe place to not be perfect and to still be important and someone who could make a difference. And she would look at people and see possibility in whoever she was talking to. And when she talked to you, it was not like an adult to a teen. She was like in awe sometimes when I would like be chatting with her of like, oh, that's a great idea. And like, and she used to joke like, oh, Jenna, when are you going to come work for me? And I'm like, June, I got to go to college first. But like, I would love to be in a position where I could do that for other people. And I think I try to do that just in my like regular interactions. But even if I just, even if I only end up impacting my children like that, where they have an adult who can look at them and see possibility, regardless of if they're hurting, regardless of what they've been through, regardless of like which strengths and weaknesses they have, because everyone has a strength, things that they're strong at and things that they are less strong at. So how do you create sense of self? How do you create value in that other person? Like, I think of June Erdman when I think of that. And for when I think about SOS and I think about June's SOS and what good she put into the world and how many lives that she touched, like, dang, like, I can only hope that that one day would be like a legacy that I could work towards. For all the like shit that went down, and for, it wasn't perfect. And honestly, even when June was there, it wasn't also not perfect. I know we didn't talk about that as much, but like, because that was, I could easier to deal with that stuff. But yeah, I think there's a lot of shit in the world right now. If we can add any amount of good to it, I'm like, yeah. And I loved
All
that
for it.
SOS gave me that action item, right? Like, I always felt when I was there that I was doing something
Mhm.
important. I was doing something good. And w- I feel like that also obviously with motherhood. I don't want to like say that I don't, but
Mhm.
um I hope that when I get back into more job related stuff that I can find somewhere where I
Mhm.
can do something like that again. Maybe not specifically that, but something that's gonna make the world a little better. So,
Mhm. June was a special person, so I was fortunate. Pretty sure I'm the last person that got to audition for June. ever. And so after I auditioned, because it was like a winter audition or fall audition, I auditioned for her, and I believe it was Brandon or Jake and Andy. And after the audition, I left. I was nervous. She almost instantly came to me and talked to me. And I remember her going, you're going to go do big things, but I think this company is going to do bigger things for you.
Smart lady.
And I'm just like, at the time, I'm just like, sure, lady that I don't know. This is weird, but thank you. And then she was like, you're in, by the way. I was like, oh. She's like, don't act like I told you. Wait for Andy and them to tell you at the end of the day.
I love her.
When they introduce you to everybody. But yeah, you're in. I'm like, and just looking back, I'm like, yeah, this woman was wise beyond, like, she's like, yeah, I can see what you can do for me as a business person. But that doesn't matter because I want this company to do more for you. And like, just that's what SOS was about. And like we've talked about, as much as this was for going out and helping teens, and like my motto the whole time I was SOS, if one single person in that audience is impacted by what we did, we succeeded that day. Like, it wasn't about changing masses. It was about helping one person who needed to be helped. But looking back at it and experiencing SOS, it was about us as people in that group expanding our mind, expanding and fixing ourselves to become the people we wanted to become. Yeah. Did it work for everybody? Of course not. There's no such thing as 100% success rate. But the people who tried and put their all into it changed our lives for the better. Like I said earlier, it didn't end the greatest for everybody, but that's part of a journey, is the bumps that it takes. You take away what you want to take away from it. And looking back, I'm definitely taking away the positives. The negatives suck, but I'm going to remember the good times and use that to shape how I approach the future.
And I think, like, we wouldn't know each other if there was no SOS, and I consider that a win. So.
Right? Oh, 100%. SOS like gave me people that in a time when I needed it, like gave me friends who it didn't matter my skin color when I joined SOS. Like, obviously we would joke like about it in the future, but that wasn't a thing. When I would walk into high school, it was a thing. Randizzle, all these other nicknames that I had just because of my skin color or because how I dressed wasn't a thing in SOS. I was just Randy in SOS. I was this people. I don't know why people thought I was so confident, but I was just a shy, introverted kid who just wanted to find people that liked me for me. And that's what I found. I found family in a group. And even though most people I haven't talked to in years, like Shay was 06, Carly was like 08. I appeared at her birthday party for her. It doesn't matter. Like, we got into these conversations.
I feel like that with almost every SOS person too. It's that bond that we have of that shared, really unique experience. And honestly, like, I love SOS people. Like, there's just something really fun and deep, I guess, of the people who are drawn to be an SOS and do that project. Like, it's people not afraid to talk about hard things. It's people that are funny, outgoing usually, like, or at least outgoing enough to perform, and like, I think a lot of them are just really smart, cool people. Like, the path a lot of them have taken has just been really fun to, like, sit back as an observer and appreciate. Like, that's really cool, man. Like, I don't know. SOS reunion needs to happen because, like, I just want to hug everybody and, like.
Oh yeah, 100%. I would love to see everybody at some point, or even just a Zoom call.
That's a good idea.
Get everybody just to say hi.
Let me think on it. Mm.
Well, I want to thank you, Jenna, for taking the time out of your life to rehash some
Yeah.
not so great things, but hopefully enough great things that overshadow that. And talking to me, I'm glad that we were able to do this. This is an amazing journey for me personally, reliving a lot of things, hearing other people's perspective of the same thing that I went through, just how it was for them. It's incredible to see and hear. I hope people listening and you, if you listen to them, feel the same way. Um, but now is the time where I want to make sure I give you your just due to shout out anything you want, talk about
Oh,
anything you want. The
whoa,
floor
okay.
is yours for as long
I
as you want.
mean, I really am mainly a stay-at-home mom now, but I had a weird thing happen where a video of mine went real viral on TikTok. So I have a pretty strong following on TikTok right now. It's at Noticing the Happy. It's a lot of kid stuff and just like crafty preschool type teacher creative stuff. And it's my goal is with it to one, capture memories for me to remember later, but also just little sweet moments that hopefully bring a smile to people's faces and a little lightness in their day. So you can check it out on TikTok. I also have a vlog. Called Ava, June, and Mommy 2, although I haven't been updating that as much. That is about puro band sequence, which is the condition that my eldest daughter has. You can find that on YouTube. A lot of these lingos, not lingos. Okay, you're gonna have to cut that out, Randy. I was going to say, most of these also have Instagram and Facebook attached to those handles. So you really can look wherever you're looking for either Noticing the Happy or Ava, June, and Mommy too. And hope to see you all there because, like, anything we can do to bring a little happy into the world, I think is a good way to do it. So, yay.
Speaking on that viral video, if you guys are listening, trust me, you want to go check it out. I know it's in the happy. It is the cutest thing ever. I swear, I saw it and I just instantly smiled. Like it's the most
Aw.
heartwarming. Like that's what you want as parents, and so it was incredible to see. Even recently, I saw you post about Ava
Yeah.
and just her evolution. And it was so amazing to see, and just how happy and
Yeah.
like strong she is during the whole thing
Yeah,
is
I
amazing.
mean,
Like it's a mini you,
well, and
uh,
like
honestly.
Mabel, who's my
the
4-year-old,
everything about
looks like I did when I was little, and she's hilarious in her own right. And then Ava is my eldest. She is just so strong. Like she's had 4 surgeries now, and the way that she has handled them is like inspiring to me. And like sometimes people are like, well, it's because like you prep her and you did all this mommy work. I was like, yeah, but it's got to come from her. Right? Like I can do my best to support and prep, but like at a certain point she's the one doing it and she impresses me all the time with not
Mhm.
only her kind heart, but like her strength to just go through life and not be afraid of whatever challenges she faces. And then Rosie, who had the super viral video, you will see loves my husband. Like she loves me too. I get to
One
but
of them
like
has to be
she
a
has
daddy as
always been just
well.
obsessed with my husband Dan, and it is very, very sweet. And the 3 of them together, like, if anything, it's a little, like, nauseating how sweet it is, so, how's that for a plug? But, like, I whoever wants to, you are always welcome to come join us and find just happy moments where we can, and, yeah, that's just the kinda energy I wanna put in the world, so, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, no, it's great. While I'm out here putting in cuss words into the world with my brothers
That's still
making
gonna
fart
make people
jokes.
laugh,
Uh,
and, as much as I notice the happy, I curse too, so it's okay. I just try to not do it when the 2-year-old's around. She'd say it then.
probably smart.
Yeah.
So thank you again, Jenna. I really do appreciate it. Thank you for taking the time. I've said thank you like a million times, like you didn't have to do this, which you didn't, but I appreciate it. And thank you guys at home for listening. I hope you enjoyed. Go follow us on hypotheticallysound.podbean.com. Hypothetically Sound presents nerdshit.podbean.com, YouTube with the same handles, Twitter, everywhere. You know the spiel. I say it every time. And until next time, deuces.
Yeah. Well,
thank you again for doing it.
No.
It wasn't too bad.
You and I could chat for
Thank you for listening to Hypothetically Sound. We hope you enjoyed the episode. All episodes can be found at hypotheticallysound.podbean.com, as well as on Apple, Spotify, and Pandora. For full unedited video versions of the podcast, please visit us at youtube.com/hypotheticallysound.